Set against the bustling backdrop of South Korea, a young woman, seemingly living the life of a true recluse, was abruptly jolted from her slumber by the insistent blaring honk of a car from downstairs. With a sigh, she rose and, peering through a small, strategically cut hole in a piece of cardboard she had painstakingly glued to her apartment window, observed the offending vehicle. Beside it, what appeared to be a high school student walked. From the car, a man's voice, deep and resonant, was clearly heard, urging the girl to get in. She then shifted her gaze, settling on a woman in the apartment directly across the street who was casually smoking a cigarette. The neighbor, noticing the peek, offered a warm smile. The young woman, a hermit by nature, immediately pulled back, slamming the cardboard shut to avoid further interaction, shutting out her momentary connection with the outside world. It was then laid bare that this reclusive young woman was, in fact, Yoon Hyup. She bore a truly strange phenomenon, a supernatural burden she had wrestled with for as long as her memory stretched. This peculiar affliction was what she internally dubbed an S-line, a vivid crimson thread that emanated from the head of every single person, stretching out and visually connecting to anyone they had ever been intimate with. Most individuals she knew sported more than a single red line sprouting from their head, and Yoon Hyup, with her uncanny ability, could see each and every one of them as clear as day. This extraordinary power, however, was far from a blessing. It was a heavy cross to bear, one not without its own crushing consequences. Yoon Hyup vividly recalled an incident from her childhood, back when she was just a little girl, an event that had unequivocally set her on the path to her solitary existence. She had, with her innocent yet piercing sight, been able to discern multiple red lines emanating from her father's head. While one line was undeniably tethered to her mother, others, horrifyingly, stretched out to different individuals. One, in particular, connected straight to her aunt, a damning scarlet proof that her father had been brazenly cheating. An innocent drawing she made, a child's simple rendition of what she saw, led to her mother's devastating discovery. The revelation, raw and painful, caused her mother to completely snap, tragically culminating in her stabbing her husband to death. Believing, with the crushing weight of a child's guilt, that this horrific incident was entirely her fault, Yoon Hyup painfully realized that her unique power was far more of a curse than any kind of blessing. It was the one thing she wished, with every fiber of her being, she could be rid of. She had, in one desperate way or another, made multiple attempts to end her own life, yet every single time, as if fate itself, or perhaps the universe, stubbornly refused to let her die and shed this burdensome power, she inexplicably found herself surviving. This relentless cycle of survival, coupled with the tragic past, ultimately forged in her a new grim ambition to find out the ultimate reason these enigmatic red lines existed, to track down the one who created them, to discover if there was another person in the world who shared her agonizing knowledge, and most importantly, how to break free from this curse. Later that day, the neighbor from across the street, a woman named Hee Won, cheerfully rang Yoon Hyup's doorbell, clearly wanting to extend a neighborly greeting. Having just moved in, Yoon Hyup, ever the embodiment of reclusion, steadfastly refused to open the door, or even offer a polite greeting in return. The woman, however, was not so easily deterred. She amiably introduced herself as the new neighbor, and as a gesture of goodwill had brought Yoon Hyup some fresh fruit as a present. After a small, utterly one-sided conversation, Hee Won gently left the fruit in front of the door and, with a kind smile, returned to her own apartment. Only then, once the coast was truly clear, did Yoon Hyup cautiously open the door, retrieve the plastic bag, and tentatively eat the fruit. Somewhere else, at a police department office, a man had just clocked in. This was the same individual who had been driving the car that had honked so insistently earlier that morning, the very sound that had roused Yoon Hyup from her sleep. This man was Ji-wook. As soon as he entered the office, he was greeted by his colleagues, a mix of weary smiles and grim professionalism. He confided in one of them, expressing concern about his niece, the very high school student he'd been trying to pick up earlier, a girl named Seon-ae. Ji-wook, being a rather dashing and charming man, was undeniably a bit of a player in his personal life. He possessed an effortless charisma that seemed to draw women into his orbit, even managing to flirt playfully with a female colleague who was about to get married herself. Meanwhile, at the same time, in the city at a local high school, a sinister scene was unfolding on the rooftop. A small group of bullies was cornering and tormenting a quiet, vulnerable girl. Then, the leader of the group, a menacing girl named Hai Young, swaggered in with a mop in hand, eagerly joining in the cruel sport of tormenting the girl. The bullied girl turned out to be Ji-wook's niece, Seon-A. Hai Young had been shaking Seon-A down for some money, and in a truly chilling moment, she threatened to throw Seon-A right off the rooftop if she dared to refuse. Seon-A, fully aware that her life hung precariously in the balance, found herself utterly powerless and had no choice but to comply with the bully's demands. Later that day, Ji-wook and his colleague, Dong-sik, found themselves knee-deep investigating a grim crime scene. The victim, a woman, had been killed in her own house, a brutal end to her life. Ji-wook, with his keen eye for detail, couldn't help but notice that despite the general disarray throughout the house, the bedroom was strangely, meticulously tidy, almost as if someone had gone to great lengths to clean it up. As he methodically checked around the premises, his gaze landed on a food box from a nearby restaurant, one that wasn't particularly well known. A hunch hit him. He believed that this unassuming restaurant might just hold the key, a breadcrumb trail that could lead him straight to the perpetrator of the murder. Shortly thereafter, another detective arrived on the scene, delivering a fresh piece of intelligence to Ji-wook. A witness had come forward, claiming to have seen a man wearing a helmet entering the victim's room the night before her lifeless body was discovered. The man appeared to be a delivery guy, and Ji-wook, putting two and two together, felt a strong conviction that this individual might have a crucial connection to the case. Further investigation, as the pieces slowly started to fit, revealed that the victim had a boyfriend whom she had just recently broken up with. Sensing a potential lead, Ji-wook immediately tasked Dong-sik with digging into that angle, telling him to investigate the ex-boyfriend. That evening, a sense of unease settled over Hyun-hyup as she cautiously opened her door just a crack to retrieve some delivered packages. There, nestled among them, she noticed a plastic bag filled with fresh apples, a thoughtful gift from Hee-won. She took the bag inside and, as she munched on an apple, she found herself idly watching the news. Suddenly, her attention was piqued. The broadcast was, coincidentally, about the very murder that Ji-wook was currently investigating. And there, frozen in the background of the news footage, she saw him. A helmeted guy, clearly trying to stay out of sight behind a wall, seemingly eavesdropping on the scene. That very moment, a chilling realization washed over her. The man had only one single S-line on his head, a stark anomaly in a world full of tangled connections, and this immediately sparked a deep suspicion within her. Soon after, as if drawn by an invisible thread, the same helmeted man showed up near Hyun-hyup's apartment building, and she spotted him straight away. A prickle of danger went down her spine. Hyun-hyup rushed to grab her phone, intending to call the police, but it had run out of juice. She quickly plugged it in to charge, her eyes still glued to the man. She watched as the helmeted man entered the apartment building across the street and then, to her utter surprise, stepped into Hee-won's apartment. Fortunately, her phone buzzed to life with just enough battery, and she quickly dialed the police. As she spoke, still monitoring the mysterious helmeted man from her window, she saw that Hee-won was clearly not in danger. The man was her partner, her boyfriend. A cold wave of realization hit Hyun-hyup. She might have just accused the wrong person, made a huge mistake. Realizing her error, she decided to hang up the call, but one nagging question still bounced around in her mind, like a ping-pong ball. Why did the man only have that S-line connected to Hee-won after they met, as if it was their very first time interacting? This unsettling incident, so close to home, only served to trigger her past trauma, stirring up old, painful memories. The next day, still reeling from the brutal beating she'd endured at the hands of Hai Young and her relentless gang, Seon-A made the conscious decision to skip school altogether. Hai Young, however, being the quintessential bully, immediately jumped to conclusions, thinking that Seon-A was deliberately avoiding school because she hadn't coughed up the promised money. So, with a cruel smirk, Hai Young went straight for Seon-A's locker, prying it open with malicious intent, hoping to find some hidden cash or something to hold over her head. Inside, to her surprise, she found a simple paper bag containing a Bayong Cheolet and, tucked innocently within, a love letter. On the other hand, Ji-wook returned home that day, only to find Seon-A's absence from school quite perplexing. She asked him for some money. And it was then, in that moment, that he finally noticed the telltale bruises marring her face and all over her body. A red flag immediately went up. Smelling a rat, he pressed her, asking what in the world had happened. But Seon-A stubbornly refused to spill the beans, opting instead to lock herself away in her room, keeping her painful secret bottled up. Soon after, as Ji-wook took a drag from his cigarette, his phone buzzed. It was Dong-sik, his colleague, on the line, delivering some interesting news. Someone had called the police regarding the helmeted man. Dong-sik highlighted a crucial detail. The fact that the perpetrator might be the helmeted man hadn't yet been leaked to the public, meaning the caller seemed to know something and had some insider info. Dong-sik then revealed the caller was none other than Ji-wook's own neighbor and urged him to go check it out. Not one to let a hot lead go cold, Ji-wook immediately made his way to meet the caller, who turned out to be Hyun-hyup herself. He tried ringing her doorbell and knocking firmly on her door, but there was no response, despite Hyun-hyup actually standing, silent and unseen, right on the other side. Then, a man wearing glasses emerged from upstairs and, seeing Ji-wook's efforts, informed him that the girl in that apartment was a complete recluse and wouldn't come out no matter what. After the man left, Ji-wook, ever persistent, once again knocked on the door, but once again, silence. Just as he was ready to give up, Hyun-hyup finally, hesitantly, opened the door a crack. Ji-wook, not missing a beat, immediately grilled her about the call and what she knew. Hyun-hyup, flustered, revealed that she had indeed seen a helmeted man enter apartment 204 across the street, initially thinking he was the perpetrator of the latest murder case. But, she quickly added, she realized she had made a wrong accusation because the man was just the woman's boyfriend. When Ji-wook, sensing something was amiss, asked her why she was home alone despite being a student, Hyun-hyup, flustered, quickly closed the door, cutting off the conversation. Later that evening, the same helmeted man was spotted once more, a looming presence in the twilight. But this time, he didn't head into the apartment building across the street. Instead, he made his way into the very building Hyun-hyup called home. Hyun-hyup, having noticed the man's approach, cautiously peeked through the hole in her door. Their eyes met for a fleeting moment, and the man seemed to notice her, a silent acknowledgement passing between them. Meanwhile, in another bustling part of the city, Seon-A sat alone, a picture of quiet apprehension, seemingly waiting for someone. Her phone buzzed, and a message from Ha-young popped up, a harsh reminder demanding she come to school tomorrow with the money she owed her. As Seon-A tucked her phone away, her gaze snagged on an old lady who had just emerged from a bank across the street, clutching an envelope, visibly bulging with cash. The desperate need for money, a gnawing ache in Seon-A's gut, pushed her to the brink of doing the unthinkable. She began to tail the old lady, following her into a narrow alley, her intention crystal clear, to snatch the bag. But just as she was about to make her move, a group of men suddenly passed by, and Seon-A, startled, quickly backed down, abandoning her plan. Then, at the very end of the alley, she spotted 3 familiar faces, 3 boys from her school, who also happened to be the boyfriends of her bullies. At the same time, Ji-wook and Dong-sik were catching a well-deserved break in their office. Dong-sik revealed that his investigation had unearthed another suspect for the murder case. He'd discovered the victim had a boyfriend named Jung-min, a math teacher at the very school Ji-wook's niece, Seon-A, attended. To top it off, Jung-min lived in the apartment building right across from Ji-wook's. Dong-sik concluded that the man's connection to the murder case seemed to be a sheer bizarre coincidence. When Dong-sik showed Ji-wook a photo of the man they were discussing, Ji-wook's eyes widened in recognition. It was the same guy he'd spoken to the day he'd gone to Hyun-hyup's apartment. Sensing a potential lead that could break the case wide open, they decided to investigate. But before they could even get out the door, Ji-wook received a call and, explaining he'd catch up later, left Dong-sik to investigate the new lead all alone. As it turned out, Ji-wook's urgent call was from a hospital regarding his father. He rushed to the hospital, his heart pounding, desperate to know what had happened. Upon arrival, he was met with alarming news. His father was missing from his room, and the entire hospital staff seemed utterly bewildered, unable to find him. Ji-wook, ignoring the bewildered nurse, had a gut feeling about where his father would be. He found him on the balcony, perched precariously on the fence, looking as if he was about to jump. In that terrifying split-second moment, Ji-wook seemed to freeze, a strange reluctance holding him still, watching as his father teetered on the edge. Fortunately, a team of nurses arrived just in the nick of time and managed to bring him down from the ledge. Meanwhile, Dong-sik had just arrived at the suspect's apartment. He pressed the doorbell, but there was no reply. He then tried the doorknob, and to his surprise, the door was unlocked. He cautiously stepped inside, finding the apartment eerily empty. He ventured further, discovering a room painted in a striking, unsettling red. Just as he was calling Ji-wook to relay his findings, the suspect, Jung-min, suddenly jumped him from behind with a heavy metal bat. Dong-sik bravely tried to defend himself, but as expected, he was no match for an armed assailant and was quickly overpowered. Ji-wook, realizing his colleague was in grave danger, immediately rushed to the scene. Shortly after, Dong-sik sat tied to a chair, helpless. The suspect, revealed to be Jung-min himself, had donned his helmet and gone to meet his girlfriend in the building across the street. Hyun-hup, from her vantage point, recognized the looming danger and watched, her heart thumping, as Jung-min walked towards the neighboring building. She knew, with a certainty that chilled her to the bone, that things were about to go south for Hee-won. Knowing she couldn't just rely on calling the police, she decided to take matters into her own trembling hands. She grabbed a kitchen knife and stepped out of her room, feeling a profound reluctance, yet forcing herself forward. She walked down the stairs, each step a tremor, haunted by thoughts of imminent danger and the deep scars of her past trauma. As soon as she stepped outside the building, her feet finally gave way. Her vision blurred, then went completely dark, and she fainted. Her sunglasses, which she used to shield her eyes from the S-lines, slipped from her face. In her faint, a hazy vision of her mother appeared, and Hyun-hup instinctively reached out to her. Jung-min finally met Hee-won, and she seemed utterly surprised to see him. It was then revealed that Jung-min too possessed the ability to see the S-line, and he had witnessed for himself the unsettling truth. His girlfriend had a multitude of S-lines on her, unequivocally revealing that she had been intimate with many men besides him. This revelation, a punch to the gut, was his breaking point. Enraged, he attacked her, his hands closing around her throat, fully intending to end her life. But just then, Hyun-hup, having miraculously overcome her paralyzing fear, managed to arrive at the scene, though still visibly trembling. Jung-min, seeing Hyun-hup standing there, trembling with a kitchen knife clutched in her hand, confronted her calmly, a chilling smirk on his face, knowing full well that the girl in front of him wouldn't be able to act on her threat. He then, in a terrifyingly composed manner, took the knife from her and stabbed Hyun-hup, leaving her bleeding on the floor. With his objective still in mind, he turned back to his girlfriend, ready to continue his brutal plan. Soon after the chaotic confrontation, Ji-wook finally burst onto the scene. His eyes immediately caught sight of Hyun-hup's sunglasses lying discarded on the ground, a chilling sign that things had indeed gone terribly wrong. He sprinted upstairs, his heart pounding. He found Hyun-hup's apartment door wide open, and stepping inside, he was met with a bizarre sight. A sprawling conspiracy map with intricate strings pinned to the wall, hinting at Hyun-hup's secret life. Looking across the street, he saw the grim tableau. Hyun-hup was lying wounded in a pool of blood, while Jung-min was brutally choking his girlfriend. Ji-wook quickly drew his gun but hesitated, a flicker of reluctance keeping his finger off the trigger. It wasn't until Hyun-hup, with a surge of desperate energy, moved and stabbed Jung-min in the thigh that Ji-wook found his opening. Just as Jung-min lunged to stab Hyun-hup, Ji-wook pulled the trigger, and Jung-min was shot. As Jung-min gasped for his last breath, Hyun-hup heard him murmur something about the lines beginning to disappear. A cold realization dawned on her. Jung-min was talking about the S-lines. Later, the ambulance arrived, sirens wailing, to evacuate the wounded. In that moment, Hyun-hup had a profound realization. Jung-min, too, had been able to see the S-lines. She recalled seeing Jung-min instinctively reaching for his glasses during the struggle, and surmised that these specific glasses might be the key to seeing the lines. After the ambulance departed, Ji-wook approached Hyun-hup, his concern evident, asking if she was okay after such a life-threatening injury. Hyun-hup, ever stoic, assured him she was fine, and he needn't worry. As Ji-wook asked her to come with him to the office, his niece, Seon-ae, unexpectedly showed up, seemingly already knowing about Hyun-hup, a curious connection. That night, Ji-wook confronted Seon-ae about the suspected bullying she was enduring at school. Seon-ae, clearly not wanting to deal with her uncle's intrusion, sharply told him to mind his own business and not meddle in hers. She declared she only needed his money, not his attention. Then, just before Ji-wook left, Seon-ae dropped a bombshell. She knew Hyun-hup. They had been classmates back in middle school. At dawn, Hyun-hyuk, perched contemplatively on a rooftop, received a mysterious message from an unknown number. The sender claimed to know about the S-lines and instructed her to come to school. That day at school, after Hae-young had already found the humiliating love letter in Seon-a's locker, Seon-a discovered the empty paper bag sitting on her desk. The bullies, with cruel precision, had meticulously set the stage to embarrass her in front of the entire class. Unable to contain her surging anger any longer, Seon-a finally snapped and fought back, lunging to snatch the love letter from Hae-young's grasp. This ignited a furious fight between them, which was eventually broken up by their quick-acting homeroom teacher, Gyu-jin. Gyu-jin took Seon-a to her office and sternly inquired why she had started the altercation. Seon-a, defiant and tight-lipped, refused to say anything and simply decided to call it a day, leaving school. Then, just before she headed home, she checked her locker and, to her surprise, found a pair of glasses tucked inside. On the other hand, Ji-wook was confronted by an annoyed Dong-sik, who clearly hadn't appreciated being left alone to investigate, leading to his beating by the suspect. Dong-sik grilled Ji-wook about his actions, and Ji-wook explained he was compiling a report on the latest case. Dong-sik confirmed that the perpetrator, Jung-min, had died, and insisted there was no need for further investigation. Ji-wook, however, voiced his lingering suspicion regarding Jung-min's true motive for the murder. Dong-sik countered that Jung-min had a history of dating violence, which had led to him being fired from his previous teaching job. This information, however, only deepened Ji-wook's unease. His nagging question was simply, why did Jung-min choose to initiate the murder a year after being fired? Moreover, Jung-min had often been heard talking about salvation, a strange detail given he wasn't known to be religious, further adding to Ji-wook's suspicion. To appease his mounting suspicion, Ji-wook decided to revisit and re-investigate Jung-min's apartment. During his solo investigation, he made a crucial discovery. The room where Dong-sik had been tied was not painted in red as previously thought. Instead, it was covered in an unsettling array of red lines all over the wall, entirely covering the surface, a chilling echo of the S-lines. At home, Seon-a, overcome with curiosity, used the glasses she had found. Instantly, a shimmering strand of red line popped out from above her own head. Soon after, Ji-wook arrived home, and Seon-a, now wearing the glasses, saw a shocking sight. A multitude of red lines emanate from his head. Stunned and horrified, she immediately ran outside, and the revelation hit her like a tidal wave. In that moment, she finally, unequivocally, realized what the lines truly were. A line connecting two people who had once had sexual intercourse. At school, armed with her new vision, Seon-a made another startling observation. Her homeroom teacher, Gyu-jin, had no S-line on her head, a profoundly strange anomaly for a woman of her age, suggesting a complete lack of sexual experience. Then she uncovered an even more shocking finding. Her bully, Hae-young, had an affair with their literature teacher, Mr. Sung-jin. That day, following the enigmatic message from the unknown number, Hyun-hyuk made her way to the school in question. This led her to become Seon-a's classmate and, by extension, Hae-young's as well, setting the stage for their paths to intertwine. That same morning, Ji-wook still had Jung-min occupying his thoughts. He was poring over a school brochure that had Jung-min's face printed on it. He noticed a critical detail. Jung-min wasn't wearing any glasses in the photo. This seemingly minor observation ignited a crucial question in his mind about Jung-min's ability to see the S-lines. He then rushed to the evidence storage to find Jung-min's glasses, but to his surprise, they were missing. Further investigation led Ji-wook to Seon-a's school. As he entered the teacher's room, Seon-a's homeroom teacher, Gyu-jin, noticed him and, ever the concerned educator, invited him to talk about Seon-a, revealing that Seon-a was, in fact, having a difficult time at school. Ji-wook, however, didn't fully absorb this information. His mind was still singularly focused on the enigma of Jung-min. He finally asked directly about Jung-min, and Gyu-jin confirmed she knew him, but she was entirely unaware of his recent heinous crime. Ji-wook then pressed, asking if Jung-min used to wear glasses, and Gyu-jin, after a moment of thought, definitively stated she had never known Jung-min to wear any. At the very same time, oblivious to Ji-wook and Gyu-jin's conversation, Hee-young and her gang once again cornered Seon-a, ready for another round of torment. Hee-young immediately demanded the money she was owed, but Seon-a, still empty-handed, had nothing to give. This time, however, a spark of defiance had ignited within Seon-a. She had remarkably regained the courage to defend herself. She quickly grabbed Ha-young's hand that was poised to slap her, and with newfound resolve told the bully that she wasn't afraid of her. This unexpected defiance only fueled Ha-young's already simmering anger. Seon-ae was slapped with such force that she reeled and fell to the floor. Then, in a moment of palpable tension, Hyun-heep dramatically appeared, stepping forward to stand up for Seon-ae. Without hesitation, she grabbed Ha-young by her collar and with surprising strength dragged her to the very edge of the rooftop. Hyun-heep seemed to intend to bring the bully down with her, threatening to jump, causing Ha-young to visibly tremble in abject fear. Hyun-heep, now holding the undeniable higher ground, delivered a chilling warning never to mess with her or Seon-ae again. Ha-young, clearly understanding that her life was hanging by a thread, just a wrong word away from ending, knew she had no choice but to comply. Surprisingly, despite being rescued, Seon-oh wasn't entirely fond of Hyun-heep's dramatic intervention, but she was nonetheless still deeply thankful for her help. After his meeting with Gyujin, Ji-wook went to the local bar near the scene of Jung-min's murder and quickly discovered that Jung-min had been a regular there. He approached the bartender, asking about Jung-min, and the bartender recalled him being quite a strange one. At first, Jung-min was just a quiet guy, drinking alone, then leaving the bar without anyone by his side. But then, one day, he arrived wearing glasses and began a bizarre ritual of counting numbers in the air. That peculiar behavior once led to an enraged patron, who, unable to tolerate the strangeness, violently punched him in the face. That evening, Seon-ae had just returned home when she spotted Hee-young from afar. Driven by a surge of defiance, she decided to follow her. What she then witnessed sent a jolt of satisfaction through her. Ha-young was meeting Mr. Sung-jin in front of a love hotel. Not wanting to miss this golden opportunity to finally blackmail the very bully who had tormented her throughout her school life, Seon-ae quickly pulled out her phone and snapped several pictures of Ha-young and Mr. Sung-jin as damning evidence. She then, with a triumphant smirk, sent the pictures directly to Ha-young, revealing that she now held an ace card in her hands. She felt, with a surge of newfound power, that she had finally gained the leverage to fight back against her tormentor. Ha-young, however, was not afraid, in the slightest. Being a minor, she knew that the only one who would truly get into trouble was Mr. Sung-jin, not her. This unexpected lack of fear from Ha-young, however, paradoxically sparked a new cunning idea in Seon-ae's mind. As it turned out, after failing to intimidate Hee-young, Seon-ae decided to escalate and blackmail Mr. Sung-jin instead. She sent him the incriminating photo and demanded 20 million won to keep their secret quiet. Her motives were not entirely malicious. She had a specific reason. She desperately wanted to move out of her uncle's house. She confided in Hyun-heep that she was utterly done living with Ji-wook and yearned for the independence of living alone. She then, somewhat abruptly, brought up Hyun-heep's mother, asking if she was still alive. Hyun-heep, who had been estranged from her mother and never contacted by her, wasn't sure if she was still alive. That night, Seon-ae's words, surprisingly, stirred something deep within Hyun-heep, reminding her of the elusive warmth of family. From her window, she observed the seemingly happy scenes of families, picturing how wonderful it would be to belong to one. Yet, even in her wistful contemplation, her S-line vision couldn't be ignored. She also noticed, with a pang of familiar cynicism, how each person in those families harbored their own clandestine affairs and secrets behind each other's backs, even within what appeared to be loving units. The next day, a terrified Mr. Sung-jin confronted Ha-young about the photo. He was absolutely petrified that their illicit relationship had been exposed to others. He even hysterically accused Ha-young of having told her friends about their secret. Ha-young, however, didn't lose her composure. With an air of calm defiance, she retorted that she too was a victim, and she would certainly not deliberately reveal their illicit relationship to others. One thing she knew for sure was that this was Seon-ae's doing. Seon-ae, on the other hand, now armed with the power to see the S-line thanks to the glasses in her possession, had gained an enormous boost of confidence. She finally, truly, stood up against her bully, but in a disturbing twist, she began to transform into a bully herself. She shockingly revealed another affair involving a different teacher. She even, with calculated malice, deliberately took one of her bully's boyfriends as her own, a direct act of revenge. This brazen act, however, truly sparked a dangerous, seething anger in Ha-young's eyes. This all-false demeanor led Hyun-hyup to directly confront Seon-ae, revealing that she too possessed the power to see the S-lines. Seon-ae, utterly shocked that someone else shared her uncanny ability, didn't immediately believe it, but Hyun-hyup proved she wasn't bluffing. She knew intimate details, like Ha-young's affair with Mr. Sung-jin, the illicit relationship of another teacher, and she could even visibly discern the single S-line shimmering above Seon-ae's own head. This overwhelming evidence was more than enough to prove her words. Hyun-hyup, assuming Seon-ae was able to see the lines by wearing the special glasses, watched as Seon-ae finally revealed the truth, confirming Hyun-hyup's suspicion. Hyun-hyup, having lived with the curse of the S-lines for years, tried to warn her friend about the dangers of such power. But Seon-ae, now completely consumed by this newfound ability, defiantly declared that this was exactly what she wanted. Later that day, Seon-ae, still intrigued by the S-lines, asked Hyun-hyup how someone could potentially get rid of them. Hyun-hyup, speaking from her own painful past, gravely explained that an S-line would only disappear from someone's head when they died. When that happened, the person connected to them would also lose that specific S-line. Meanwhile, Mr. Sung-jin sat alone in his car, a chilling smile slowly spreading across his face as he stared at a picture of him and Ha-young on his phone, seemingly hatching an evil plan. At the same time, Seon-ae was enjoying an intimate moment with a boy from her school when suddenly her phone buzzed with a message from Mr. Sung-jin, telling her he already had the money and asking her to meet him on the school rooftop. After that, Seon-ae went to a photo booth with the boy, oblivious to the fact that someone in a hoodie was stealthily following them from behind. As they entered the photo booth, the mysterious stalker, who was none other than Ha-young, watched intently as Seon-ae dropped her bag. Ha-young then slipped inside and snatched it. It was then revealed that Ha-young had overheard Seon-ae's conversation with Hyun-hyup in the school toilet earlier, and now knew that Seon-ae possessed the power to see the S-lines by using a pair of glasses. This knowledge compelled her to brazenly steal the glasses from Seon-ae's hand when Seon-ae wasn't looking. However, Ha-young's triumph was short-lived because, as she walked through the city, witnessing the overwhelming S-lines all over people's heads, someone abruptly grabbed her from behind. After leaving the photo booth, Seon-ae finally realized with a jolt that she had lost her glasses, and immediately and incorrectly suspected that it was Hyun-hyup who had taken them. Hyun-hyup, however, was clearly not the culprit. Seon-ae then revealed to Hyun-hyup that she was going to the school that night, a confession that immediately made Hyun-hyup suspect something terrible was about to happen. After this alarming call, Hyun-hyup didn't hesitate for a second to go after Seon-ae, desperately hoping nothing bad would befall her friend. Seon-ae, on the other hand, had already reached the rooftop and confronted Mr. Sung-jin, who had been patiently waiting for her there. Mr. Sung-jin, visibly desperate, begged her to drop the case and promised to do anything for her if she agreed to delete the incriminating photo. But Seon-ae, consumed by her own rage, flatly refused. She was utterly sick of the teachers who constantly looked the other way, letting Ha-young and her gang mercilessly bully her, simply because they were afraid that Ha-young's boyfriend's father, who was an extremely important figure for the school, would take matters into his own powerful hands. Then, shortly after, Mr. Sung-jin received a devastating message from his wife, revealing that she too had received the photo. This was the final breaking point for him. Enraged, he spun back to Seon-ae, hysterically accusing her of having sent the photo to his wife. He furiously pushed Seon-ae to the very edge of the wall, and, just as Hyun-hyup arrived at the school, frantically looking around to find Seon-ae, she witnessed the horrifying sight of Seon-ae falling from the rooftop, landing right in front of her eyes. The S-line on Seon-ae's head, however, was still visibly present, a chilling sign that she was miraculously still alive. Seon-ae was immediately rushed to the hospital to receive urgent treatment to save her life. Not long after that, while Seon-ae was undergoing a critical surgery, Ji-wook showed up and asked Hyun-hyup, who was waiting anxiously in front of the operating room, what had happened. Hyun-hyup simply stated that she found Seon-ae falling from the rooftop as soon as she arrived at school, explaining that Seon-ae had told her she was going to school that night, and Hyun-hyup was there to meet her. One thing Hyun-hyup was absolutely sure of was that Seon-ae's fall was not a suicide. As soon as the news about Seon-ae's incident hit the school grounds, it descended into complete chaos. The teachers and staff were thrown into a frantic mess. especially knowing the news would surely tarnish their school's good name beyond repair. The Dean of Studies conveyed his profound disappointment in a firm, unyielding demeanor, and it immediately hit a nerve with the other teachers. What initially seemed to be an evaluation quickly devolved into heated arguments in no time. Amidst that commotion, a school staff member wearing glasses accidentally dropped her belongings, and the kind music teacher stepped in to help her tidy up her things. While the shocking news of Seon-ae's fall continued to rock the entire school, the school's English teacher, Mr. Kim, found himself grappling with a personal crisis. His upcoming wedding had been abruptly called off due to an undisclosed problem. This led him to decide on a drastic change. He was moving to Canada to start afresh. Before his departure, he decided to stay at his sister's place. During their conversation, he inquired about his brother-in-law Byung Cheol, but his sister simply explained that Byung Cheol was out for work and typically very busy, making it unlikely they'd have a chance to meet. Meanwhile, Hyun Hyup was utterly shocked and devastated by what had happened to Seon-ae. Not only because Seon-ae was her friend, but also because she had witnessed the horrifying fall firsthand. Firm in her conviction that Seon-ae's fall was not a suicide attempt, Hyun Hyup headed to the rooftop to search for clues. There, she encountered Kyung Jin, a student from another class. She firmly believed Seon-ae's fall was not self-inflicted, and she strongly suspected Ha-young had something to do with it, especially since Ha-young had been conspicuously absent from school since the incident. As they walked down a school corridor, they passed Jun Seon, a student from Hyun Hyup's class, wearing glasses. Still determined to find Seon-ae's missing glasses, Hyun Hyup stopped him, quickly grabbed the glasses he was wearing, and put them on, hoping to confirm if they were the ones she was looking for. In the teacher's office, Mr. Kim was tidying up his desk when he discovered a pair of glasses, the very same type Seon-ae had been using. He asked Gyujin, who was sitting behind him, if they were hers. Gyujin looked at them intensely and confirmed they weren't, instead remarking that they must be Mr. Kim's and that they suited him well. Flattered by the comment, Mr. Kim decided to put them on. The moment the glasses settled on his face, he froze in sheer shock, suddenly witnessing the impossible. There were red S lines emanating from people's heads. Shortly after, Ji-wook appeared, and Mr. Kim saw him covered in hundreds of these red lines. Overwhelmed, a truly stunned Mr. Kim immediately yanked the glasses off. Ji-wook's visit was to uncover the truth behind his niece's fall. Gyujin offered her condolences, assuming it was a suicide attempt, and blaming herself for not being more attentive to her students. Ji-wook, however, firmly emphasized that it was not yet confirmed as a suicide attempt. He then inquired about the student who had been bullying Seon-ae. Gyujin informed him that Hee-young hadn't been showing up to school since the incident. Upon hearing this, Ji-wook asked about another student, a male he recognized from a photo he'd found in Seon-ae's handbag. Gyujin then arranged a meeting with the student. Ji-wook went straight to the male student and directly asked about his relationship with Seon-ae. The student confessed he had nothing serious to do with Seon-ae. He admitted he knew she liked him and he had simply played along, finding her sudden transformation from bullied outcast to school star quite interesting. Furthermore, the student recalled that during his last date with Seon-ae, he'd noticed she seemed anxious and was missing something, though he didn't know what it was. Upon returning to the office, Ji-wook decided to review the CCTV footage near the photo booth. There, he clearly saw Ha-young taking Seon-ae's handbag. He then checked another CCTV feed and found Ha-young, now unmistakably wearing a pair of glasses that Ji-wook recognized Seon-ae had been wearing for a while. After following her movements, he saw her vanish into a dark alley, the trail going cold. Meanwhile, Mr. Kim was having dinner with his sister and her husband, Byung Cheol. This time, armed with his new vision of the S-lines and finally understanding their meaning, he saw the red lines connecting his sister's husband to others, instantly realizing that Byung Cheol had been cheating on his sister. After an attempt to break the awkward silence, Byung Cheol abruptly brought up Mr. Kim's canceled wedding. Despite his wife's futile attempts to stop him, Byung Cheol pressed on. Mr. Kim, trying not to be impolite despite the sensitive topic, answered, revealing he had discovered his girlfriend's affair before their marriage. This revelation shocked them both, especially the sister. After dinner, Mr. Kim and Byung Cheol went outside. They took the elevator, and when they passed the 4th floor, Mr. Kim, now able to see the S-lines, saw the red line on Byung Cheol's head connected to someone on that floor. He, however, kept his mouth shut, choosing to observe. They then sat together outside the building to enjoy a cigarette. At that moment, Byung-cheol casually remarked that he should be keeping in closer touch with his sister. When they returned inside, while taking the elevator, Mr. Kim clearly saw Byung-cheol accidentally press the wrong floor button. It was the 4th floor, the very same floor where the person connected to Byung-cheol resided. Out of intense curiosity, when Byung-cheol wasn't looking, Mr. Kim subtly pressed that floor button again, hoping to see which room it was. But when they arrived at that floor, Byung-cheol immediately stopped him, firmly stating that they were not stopping on that floor. On the other hand, Ji-wook was met with harsh treatment by his superior upon finding out he was investigating his niece's incident. He was sternly told to move on and turn a blind eye to the incident to keep the school's clean name intact. But Ji-wook flatly refused, driven by his unwavering desire to seek justice for his niece. However, his investigation thus far hadn't produced any significant breakthroughs. He still couldn't unlock his niece's phone to find crucial clues. The next day, Mr. Kim discovered a wrong addressed package in front of his sister's apartment. Seeing that it was supposedly meant for a room on the 4th floor, he decided to return it to the rightful owner. And, of course, to subtly find out who the person Byung-cheol was cheating with truly was. He soon arrived at the door, but at the very last second, he hesitated and backed down, his courage failing him. However, before he left, he finally managed to ascertain the identity of the woman who lived there. To confirm her name, he discreetly looked at the mail for that room and finally discovered that her name was Chae-rin. Some other day, after a pilgrimage to honor their mother, Mr. Kim asked his sister about Byung-cheol, who was conspicuously absent for the ceremony. His sister explained that Byung-cheol was out for work and would return in a few days. Clearly, this only strengthened Mr. Kim's already growing suspicion that Byung-cheol was indeed cheating on his sister. His sister, however, didn't seem to mind Byung-cheol's absence much, and instead brought up Mr. Kim's canceled marriage, mistakenly believing it was because they were parentless that his girlfriend's parents didn't bless their relationship. Mr. Kim denied it outright, correcting her that it was solely because of the cheating. He clearly still loved her, but the betrayal had hurt him so deeply. It was revealed that their own father had cheated on their mother, and when his girlfriend cheated on him, it painfully brought back that agonizing memory, creating a cycle of betrayal. The photo of Ha-young and Mr. Sung-jin's illicit relationship finally leaked to the school, sending shockwaves through the entire student body and staff. Not a single soul was not stunned by the revelation. On the other hand, Mr. Sung-jin was finally found, but tragically, he was already dead. He was discovered in his car, a clear victim of an attempted suicide. From the crime scene, Ji-wook found a piece of paper with Mr. Sung-jin's will written on it. They also found out that Mr. Sung-jin had been deceased for at least 3 days. However, Ji-wook didn't fully believe the suicide theory, finding it strange for someone to die in plain sight, yet only be found 3 days later. Still not giving up on his niece's case, Ji-wook went to her school to find Hyun-hyup, knowing she was the only student he knew was genuinely close to Seon-A. He asked her if she knew the reason Seon-A returned to school that night, but Hyun-hyup answered his question with another question about Seon-A's glasses. Upon hearing the word glasses, Ji-wook noticed something significant about them and asked what Hyun-hyup knew. Hyun-hyup, however, remained tight-lipped, refusing to answer until he was able to find the glasses. On the other hand, Mr. Kim saw Byung-cheol on the street and, driven by suspicion, immediately took a taxi to follow his car. This pursuit led him to a fancy hotel, and inside, he witnessed with his own eyes that Byung-cheol was indeed with Chae-rin, the very woman he suspected as Byung-cheol's mistress. He watched as Byung-cheol presented her with an expensive necklace. They even shared a tender moment when Byung-cheol lovingly placed the necklace on Chae-rin's neck. Unable to stand what he saw, Mr. Kim then called Byung-cheol, casually asking where he was, only to be met with a blatant lie. He decided not to confront Byung-cheol just yet, choosing instead to discreetly find out the room they were staying in. After Byung-cheol and Chae-rin returned to their room, Mr. Kim finally, decisively, confronted the man. He threatened Byung-cheol, vowing to spill the beans to his sister and to force him to end his relationship with his mistress. Byung-cheol, utterly desperate not to have this secret known by either his mistress or his wife, begged Mr. Kim to let him finish what he had started. The next day, Mr. Kim, ready to embark on his journey to Canada, bid a final goodbye to his sister. Before leaving, he asked if Byung-cheol had called, but to his surprise, Byung-cheol hadn't. meaning the confrontation from the previous night remained a secret from his sister. Later at school, after tidying up his desk, Mr. Kim idly looked at Chae-rin's social media and saw a shocking post. She announced her pregnancy. This news truly snapped something in Mr. Kim. He immediately rushed back to his sister's apartment, intent on confronting Byung-cheol himself. But when he arrived, he was met with a chaotic scene. His sister was desperately trying to hit Chae-rin's car with her own. Soon after, Byung-cheol returned, and instead of consoling his clearly distressed wife, he shockingly hugged Chae-rin right in front of both Mr. Kim and his wife. This was the last thing Mr. Kim expected, and he completely lost control. He furiously beat Byung-cheol, demanding an explanation. His sister, however, suddenly intervened and stopped him. Only after Byung-cheol and Chae-rin had left did his sister finally drop the bombshell that shattered Mr. Kim's world. Chae-rin was Byung-cheol's real wife. Byung-cheol wasn't Mr. Kim's brother-in-law at all. What utterly shocked Mr. Kim the most was the horrifying realization that his sister was instead Byung-cheol's mistress. On the other hand, Ji-wook had noticed compelling new evidence in his niece's case. He then approached Hyun-hup, asking for an explanation about what he had just found, about the glasses Hyun-hup had been urging him to locate and the mysterious S-line phenomenon. Hyun-hup, realizing Ji-wook was now aware of these secrets, finally came clean. She explained that the S-line, the red line visible on people's heads after using the glasses, represented a connection between individuals who had previously had sexual intercourse. She also revealed her own unique ability, stating she had been able to see these lines since she was born. Ji-wook clearly couldn't fully believe such a fantastical claim. But given the unsettling fact that numerous strange cases with similar oddities had been popping up everywhere, he couldn't simply turn a blind eye to her testimony. The next day at school, Mei-sung, a school staff member who wore glasses, was called in by the dean after making the same mistake in her report. She was sternly told to redo her work. Shockingly, as she sat with the dean, Mei-sung was also able to see the S-lines, just like Hyun-hup, and she observed that the dean didn't have any lines on her head. She then returned to her desk and began to manically play with a stapler, a subtle sign that she seemed to understand the unsettling meaning of the lines she was now seeing. Later, during lunch, Mei-sung was asked by another staff member about her personal dreams, and she proudly declared that she wanted to be an actress and had even once been scouted by a talent seeker. The dean, who was also seated at the table, expressed amazement at this revelation. Soon after, the music teacher, Mr. Park, passed by their table, and Mei-sung's attention immediately shifted entirely to him. It was abundantly clear that she harbored a significant crush on the music teacher. Later that day, a mysterious woman in a red dress with vibrant pink hair was seen walking past a road and stopping by a hotel nearby. Meanwhile, Ji-wook and Dong-sik were busy with Seon-a's case, meticulously trying to connect the dots to find the perpetrator who had pushed her from the rooftop. They initially suspected Mr. Sung-jin was the one responsible, but further investigation couldn't definitively prove it. Moreover, Mr. Sung-jin had been declared missing during the incident, and a testimony from his family stated he had a severe fear of heights, providing a strong alibi that seemed to clear him of suspicion. Ji-wook then cautiously told Dong-sik about the glasses Seon-a had been wearing lately and how she had seemingly become a different person after putting them on. He also, with some hesitation, revealed his knowledge of the S-line phenomenon, but Dong-sik predictably didn't believe him. Soon after, their superior entered the room and they quickly acted as if nothing out of the ordinary was happening, clearly attempting to hide their unconventional investigation from their superior. Later, it was revealed that Hyun-hup had taken on a part-time job as a receptionist for a hotel near her house. That day, Kyung-jin and Jun Seon came to visit her, almost causing a commotion in the lobby. Hyun-hup had to swiftly intervene, ushering them into her tiny receptionist office, where they were packed in like canned tuna. In that cramped space, Kyung-jin cleverly used the chance to push Hyun-hup closer to Jun Seon, clearly getting the signal that Jun Seon harbored a crush on Hyun-hup. Soon after, the same woman with pink hair approached the desk and asked for room number 206. Kyung-jin, being the nosy girl she was, peeked to get a look at the woman, and after seeing her face, she said she was familiar with her. The pink-haired woman herself went to her room, lay herself on the bed, and began a monologue, revealing she had had sex with a lot of men. However, she then met a particular person whom she couldn't take her eyes off. Later that day, when Hyun-Hoop and her friends were chilling on the rooftop, they noticed the same pink-haired woman walking below them. Kyung-jin finally recognized her as Mei-sung. Jun Seon wasn't entirely sure because she looked so much different out of school context, but Kyung-jin was insistent that it was indeed her. Kyung-jin was proven correct because after leaving the hotel, the pink-haired woman returned to her small apartment, and it was revealed that her pink hair was a wig. She was, indeed, Mei-sung, leading a double life. Meanwhile, Ji-wook was in his office, his eyes scanning through recent case files, all related to the same perplexing phenomenon, the S-line. He then went to the hospital to meet with Hyun-Hoop. He specifically asked if there was any S-line visible on Seon-A's head, and, if so, to whom it was connected. Hyun-Hoop confirmed she could see a single strand of S-line on Seon-A, but she didn't know where it led. Ji-wook inquired if it was connected to the boy Seon-A had been seeing lately, and Hyun-Hoop confirmed it wasn't. Later that night, Hyun-Hoop was watching the news when she witnessed another murder case where the perpetrator was wearing a pair of glasses. This immediately reminded her of Ji-wook once asking if there could be a possibility of more than one pair of those strange glasses in existence. The next day at school, Mei-sung was walking down the corridor when she heard music drifting from the music classroom. She entered and found Mr. Park sitting alone, lost in the melodies. They had a brief conversation during which Mr. Park correctly guessed that Mei-sung harbored ambitions of becoming an actress and complimented her expressive abilities. Mei-sung was visibly delighted by the compliment, especially coming from the man she had a crush on. But then her smile faltered as she noticed a single red line on Mr. Park's head. She found herself imagining if that line could, instead, be one that connected them. After school that day, Jun Seon approached Hyun-Hoop. He explained that Kyung-jin had something else to do and had left early. Jun Seon then seized the opportunity to get closer to Hyun-Hoop, asking her to go with him. Hyun-Hoop, being a good friend, simply agreed to his invitation. Jun Seon noticed that Hyun-Hoop preferred quiet places, so he decided to take her to the school's swimming pool. He then asked if Hyun-Hoop knew how to swim, and she replied that she didn't. Yet, to his utter surprise, she suddenly jumped into the pool and remained submerged. Despite being unable to breathe underwater, she appeared remarkably calm, a stark contrast to Jun Seon, who was utterly panicked, convinced she was drowning. He immediately jumped in and pulled her back to the surface, but after breaking the water, she simply laughed. After getting out of the pool, Jun Seon offered Hyun-Hoop his sweater, a simple gesture that, for Hyun-Hoop, unexpectedly sparked the seed of love within her heart. Later, after drying themselves off and sharing some instant noodles, Hyun-Hoop confessed to Jun Seon that she enjoyed being underwater because it made her feel completely at ease. She then made a significant revelation. She was able to see red lines on people's heads. Although strange, Jun Seon remarkably chose to believe her. That small time they spent together brought them much closer to each other. On the other hand, Ji-wook had just returned to the office when a woman greeted him. Dong-sik, knowing his colleague was quite a player, teasingly asked if he had someone he was seeing. Ji-wook confessed that there was someone he had been thinking of. The face of Gyu-jin popped into his head, but he kept her identity to himself, not revealing it to Dong-sik. The next day, Mei-sung returned to the hotel where Hyun-Hoop worked, and once again, as if it were a routine, asked for room number 206. Later, when Hyun-Hoop was performing room service, she overheard Mei-sung repeating the same monologue from before, over and over again, but this time with varying tones and expressions, as if practicing. However, this time, she added new details. Her ambition of becoming an actress, her serendipitous stumbling across this hotel, then her newly acquired power to see the S-lines after finding a pair of glasses, and most shockingly, her being a spectator to whatever business a patron in the next room was conducting through a hole in the wall. Shortly after, Mei-sung heard a distinct clicking sound of someone unlocking the room next to hers, and out of curiosity, she peeked through a hole in the wall. She was utterly shocked to find that the person in the next room was none other than Mr. Park. Soon after, another person entered, and it was a woman. From the S-line on their heads, which was clearly connected to each other, it was revealed that the woman was Mr. Park's partner. Then, they began their intimate business, and Mei-sung, jealousy clearly etched on her face, listened intently, knowing the man she had a crush on was having intercourse with another woman. After their encounter, the woman immediately left, but not before making a promise to meet again the very next day. After the woman left, Mei-sung immediately went to the receptionist and asked to prolong her stay. The The very next day, as the same woman returned, Mei-sung attacked her from behind, dragged her to her room, and tied and gagged her. She then took the woman's clothes and, having assumed her identity, went to the room where Mr. Park was waiting. Seeing Mei-sung come into his room, of course, surprised Mr. Park immensely, especially when she began to act like a maniac, shouting the same monologue she used to say in a flirty, unhinged manner. Mr. Park, loyal to his partner, rejected Mei-sung right there and then, calling her crazy, and started walking towards the door. But suddenly, Mei-sung threw a stapler she had been clutching this entire time, hitting him and stopping him in his tracks. Then, out of the blue, he felt completely limp and fell to the floor, paralyzed. Mei-sung then dragged him to the bed and began kissing him passionately while he was unconscious. Horrifically, blood began gushing from the man's head, soaking the pillow beneath it. The shocked Mei-sung, instead of helping, reacted with disturbing manic energy, starting to hump him manically. For a short moment, Mr. Park regained consciousness, but he was still paralyzed and couldn't fight back. Then, abruptly, the light faded from his eyes as the red line on his head vanished and his soul left his body. After witnessing the man she loved die in front of her, Mei-sung was utterly devastated. She retreated to the bathtub and, using the very stapler she had wielded against Mr. Park, began stapling herself repeatedly, all while still repeating her disturbing monologue over and over again. Meanwhile, Hyun-hup was doing her usual room service when, to her shock, she saw the woman who had been with Mr. Park come out of Mei-sung's room, her hands and feet tied and her mouth gagged. Hyun-hup then cautiously checked on room 205, only to find Mr. Park's dead body on the bed. Ji-wook soon arrived at the crime scene to investigate. They found Mei-sung's dead body soaked in her own blood in the bathtub, her body covered in staples. He then asked if anyone had found a pair of glasses, and Dong-sik confirmed that they couldn't find any. Ji-wook then went to see Hyun-hup to get her testimony. Hyun-hup explained that she could see a single S-line on Mei-sung's head, but it wasn't connected to Mr. Park's. She then revealed that Mei-sung's appearance and demeanor at school and at the hotel were completely different. While Mei-sung always wore her glasses at school, she never wore them at the hotel, not until she was found dead. Hyun-hup then ominously stated that the glasses were dangerous and that they would make the person who wore them feel special and powerful. Later, Hyun-hup's words kept replaying in Ji-wook's mind, echoing his own growing suspicions. Finally, he decided to check the crime scene again. This time, he chose to drain the bathtub, and there, amidst the bloodied water, he found the glasses Hyun-hup had been talking about. He took them and, out of pure curiosity, put them on. That was the pivotal moment the truth was finally and undeniably revealed to him. He was able to see those very red lines Hyun-hup had described, and to his astonishment, he could see hundreds of them emanating from his own head.